I'd like to spend a little time today talking about a trend in the field of psychotherapy. The trend being a realization that we may have played out our hand by having multiple and competing schools of thought. And what we may need to look at is common principles or common processes of change. In essence, raising the question in the field of psychotherapy of what is right, not who is right. So we start looking at certain principles of change, and there are several. And I'd like to speak to one of these and make some clinical comments on that. And that has to do with the importance of the patient entering the therapy with expectations that they can change and also motivation to change. And without that, no matter what your form of therapy is, no matter the nature of the clinical problem, you're going to need that. So the question becomes, how can we bring this about? So some very interesting research by a colleague of mine, Jessica Schleider, has dealt with the concept of growth mindset. Now, I hadn't heard about this beforehand, but apparently there's a long history of both basic and applied research on growth mindset. And Jessica will, in a separate video, talk about some of her work in that area. And basically, it informs an individual that the brain has plasticity and that it can change. It can learn over a period of time. So taking this notion, I tried playing around clinically to see what my patients would, how they would react to this. And I explained that your past experiences over the years have had a very permanent impact on you. They're stored somewhere, stored probably in the brain. So we have neural circuits that build up over a period of time. And at this point, we don't know how to erase them. So what do we then do? Well, let's call these original neural circuits that have been built up, that are creating problems, that in certain situations trigger emotion, trigger certain kinds of thoughts, trigger certain kinds of behavior. Let's call this neuron 1 for simplicity's sake. So what does therapy involve? Since it can't eliminate these neural circuits, new neural circuits need to be built up through new experiences. And that's what the therapy is about, new experiences in thinking, feeling, and behavior. So anytime, I tell my patients, you feel a setback, it's not your fault, really. It's the activity of neuron 1 being triggered. And what that means is that you've got to step back and recognize, oh, that's old stuff, neuron 1, I need to build up neuron 2. And they take to this in a way that I couldn't have anticipated. It lets them fully realize experientially that change is gradual, that there will be setbacks, and that it's not their fault. It also gives them the mental set of growth, not change. So some people say, I can't change who I am, but they can grow. And this fits right into the typical expectation. It gives them a sense of agency. It attributes the setback to brain functioning, not to the fact that they're a bad client or that they're not capable of improving. So I think it's possible to use this, regardless of your form of therapy, regardless of your orientation, regardless of the patient and the patient's problem. I'm not saying it will always work, but I urge you to try. And if it does work, I urge you to spread the word to others, not only about this specifically, but also about general principles of change and how we need to focus more after 100 years of doing therapy, more than 100 years. We need to focus on what can we agree on? What are the common principles? What is right, not who is right. I hope you use this and use it effectively in your clinical work. And if it does work, I urge you to spread the word through social media, through listservs, through teaching, through supervision. Thank you.